Bhutan's education system has a mission called nationally rooted, globally competent, which is very much in line with the future of education.
I realized that not everyone has the same level of access to learning facilities like computers, laptops, phones, or decent internet connection.
In order to build resilience and adaptability in our workforce. Apart from youth, adults are also at risk of being unemployed, and this pandemic has shown that this can happen.
The most beautiful thing is that parents, teachers, and the communities now are beginning to realize that education is the future.
What COVID-19 has done is shed light on the need to have a robust IT infrastructure to prepare Bhutan for an education system of the future.
Also understand that learning is not always progressive from bachelor's to master's to PhD, but learning can also mean unlearning certain things in order to learn new things.
As I was listening to all the three speakers, they were touching on very pertinent issues that are not really new. It has always existed, but perhaps we have never paid much attention to it. For instance, talking about self-learning, which is related to continuous learning, which is related to Sir talking about moving from content-driven education to skill-based education, right? To make people adaptable and to have this resilience. And also the inequality in income, access to infrastructure like the IT, to be able to access education during emergencies. And when that is not there, it further widens the gap between those privileged and underprivileged. Right. So on that note, I would like to open up the forum for a discussion. If anybody has any burning question.
What's your view on the school closure due to this pandemic? Because school is a social experience, and you brought out so many benefits of going to the school. And there is a student here, there's a teacher here. So your very frank opinion about reopening schools, especially in remote areas where risks are less.
On the closure of schools, I think we need to reimagine how best we can make use of school as a social experience in order to not leave out the authentic learning experience from the children. So I think this is something we should really seriously be thinking, not to compromise some middle path on how best should we get back to what, not necessarily the normal as we know it, but a new normal, and not just dismiss it by closing the school altogether. So that's something that I wanted to share.
I thought it was very necessary, essential, but extreme, but essential. From my own experiences, it's been challenging, but in recognizing that this is the new medium that we have to work with, and not only saying, how do I cope with this, but also, how do I take advantage of it? If that makes sense.
As a teacher, I would say that it was a good decision to close schools. And coming to one of your questions, like schools opening in remote and like urban schools being closed, I think it will cut off the accessibility and the level of education that is given to everyone. So that was a teacher's thought. Whereas like I'm quite supportive of the schools closing, because the pandemic has given us a forced opportunity to relook at school. And I would like to use the word doing school, because we think that education can be done only in schools. Can education be only done through schools, like through infrastructures, through a teacher going to the class and a group of students attending? So it has opened up opportunities whereby we can relook or rethink or reimagine education. And how can we do schools? However, I'm not like outrightly saying that schools should not exist. Schools should exist, but will education be 100% correlated with school, just school? Can we do something differently? Can we think out of the box? Can we have textbook-less curriculum? So the pandemic has indeed given us the opportunity to close schools and give a good look at that.
I wonder how, education would look different in Bhutan because of this pandemic. What can be improved within the system? What has to change? What skill set has to be provided to the students? And what skill set should the teachers already have the competences to nurture in the students, right? For learning as well as for employment. So any one of you.
I feel there should be a blend of, the blended learning system should be a way forward, where there is a need for some level of face-to-face interaction between school teachers and students and management of the school, but there should also be other ways of learning in an effective manner using technology as a tool. So I think that's something we should explore more on how schools can be reimagined. And based on that, I think as a policymaker and as government, maybe we reprioritize and refocus our resources to where it is needed the most.
I think this is where the idea of being ICT literate came in, especially for a generation of teachers that did not grow up with technology. And the students fell short as well because they thought it was online, so they didn't take it very seriously as well. And what needs to be put in place from my point of view is a continuous strain of learning in this very field, which can be applied in the future again and again. Or maybe if I'm not aiming too high, an education policy that necessitates a teacher to be ICT literate. Doesn't have to be weeks, doesn't have to be months, just has to be some days where they can train on the use of technology in a way that benefits both them and their students.
At this present time, how online teaching is happening. I teach English in class 8, so I do some online teaching. So I give them some tasks. What is happening is they write it in their book, they click a photo and send it in my personal chat. So is that online education? And another thing that I would like to present is the present education system. It's 8:30 to 4 education system, wherein everything is suited for everyone. Where is personalized learning? And for the future, a personalized learning where a student harness his or her own the best potential needs to be focused. In a classroom of 20, we may have 5 sets of different students. But the teacher comes in and takes one strategy and teaches the children learning. And the scenario that the education system in Bhutan or elsewhere is happening is it's academic driven and it's end goal. At the end of the day, it is not how much education that has been imparted to our children. The teacher will think more about is the syllabus coverage or is it exam oriented. So where is education? So that things need to come. And I would say that a teacher's role in the 21st century education or in the post-COVID education should be on providing children the basic human skills like resilience, like self-learning skills, like empathy, emotional intelligence. Whereas the rest can be taken by technology-based learning. We are in the age of AI. And if we don't adapt the technology-based learning, it will be like a farmer having a power tiller and a pair of oxen. And when everybody is using the power tiller, the farmer will be still using the other farmer. Farmer A will be using power tiller and farmer B will be using the pair of oxen. So the efficiency level. So as a teacher, I feel that the basic human skills needs to be imparted by a teacher in a social setting in a school. Whereas the technology-driven education should happen, and it is more than high time to happen. And I would say that Bhutan is already a lot late in that. And the online education that I have just presented is not in online education at all. Thank you.
We often know what the problems are, and also we have come a long way in terms of knowing what the solutions could probably be. But often what we lack is implementation. My take has always been, we always look at somebody else to do that, take up that solution. We never introspect or reflect ourselves. What can I as individual do? So I just threw this question to all three of you. What do you see you can do at your own individual level to address the problem?
I draw a difference between an educationist and a teacher. A teacher is a person who goes to the school 8 to 4 and teaches a set of children with a set of curriculum. Whereas an educationist looks at schooling differently and looks at giving different opportunities for the children to learn. So I would say that teachers should inspire themselves, and teachers should come forward, just not wait for the directions from the REC or from MOE. How like teachers can teach the same topic that is in the curriculum differently to different children.
It is easier to identify problems than to provide the right solution. And sometimes solutions take time, and most of us don't have patience. We jump on from one program to the other. So that's something we need to be conscious of. At my professional level, wherever I have been, I've tried to inculcate the culture of learning among my team. So learning is something that I'm very open to. And even now, like I've just started venturing into a new field where, again, it has to start from scratch. You have to build the skills right from the scratch. So that's something I'm accepting it, not to be too ambitious in terms of seeing the results. That it's to do with skills, that the thing that I'm doing. Again, that also, you have to build the skills, imagine that these will work, and then have the patience to see the outcome. So these are some things that I personally try to adapt or adopt in my personal life to overcome whatever barriers or issues that we have as a society.
Te alulu lap chuseu dalu chura member te chapsana juda lap gadebe chune mose. Te hanzumgi chuwa songo bo dalu tetekap lobdana lopha that textbook dan sugi pesha tenile happe social roles, clean sanitation, clean water for the children, mebashin gagi role mola. As a teacher, nagi datu na nagi anusu gara lop chubashin ngi genghai me se shunila. Dani beodalu ti kachibe mathop ina se human gi basic rights yume alu gi tanlo. Dani chuchi mebdalu kachibe mebina se. Te hanuzumgi netang lash dula ngachi dari COVID-19 ding ngachi gi tanlo yakhap nalu community transmission mebdang ngachi gi anusu netang lijumbe shipchi benigi nai ngai beashin dil I
would be interested to hear from you, like, as a teacher, how do you think these incentives could be changed so that teachers are not only willing to get through with the syllabus, which is still important, but also bring in the elements that constitute true learning. And on the other hand, when we think of individuals trying to change things, I, as a public servant, I understand that sometimes that's very difficult, because we like to say it's hard to fight against the system. Although we are the system, it becomes something, it takes a shape on its own. So I'm here to say that, especially in our public sector, a lot of what we do as agencies or ministries, our efforts sometimes lack the coordination. So we're all trying to do good things, things we think will benefit people, but they do not reinforce each other. They're not coherent. And I think it's important for me to share this here because this is, again, something all of us can try to fight. So perhaps this could also be a new role for civil society organizations where they try to create these linkages between our agencies.
Is our education system catering to the different needs of children? If we can emphasize on skill development, if we can emphasize on the variety of student learning or the choices of the different students, I think there will be change. And right now, I would gladly accept what you have just mentioned. Teachers are just being teachers because the system demands them to be teachers. From a personal point of view, I would still say that we just cannot accept that and stay. As teachers, like when we started Teachers of Bhutan Volunteers, we have about 4,000 plus teachers on board right now. I said that it's not the system, it's not the Prime Minister, or it's not His Majesty, or it's not the Minister of Education that needs teachers to be inspired. It is an inspiration that the teachers have to bring from within. If we ourselves are waiting for others to inspire us, then till when are we going to? We have to empower ourselves. On a policy level or on a bigger level, I really believe that if teacher voices need to be heard, and if the things need to really change, a teacher association in Bhutan would really be the starting point. It's not that VTOP is going to be the, me being the founder of VTOP, I don't mean that VTOP will become the teacher association. But in order for the teacher voices to be heard, and in order for the ground realities to be focused, and in order for the changes, the real changes to come fast, a teacher association will really bring a positive change.
What opportunities does this pandemic create in terms of employment in the country? We have seen that there are thousands of construction workers from across the border and who have left, and there is a void now. On one hand, we have so many youth coming from overseas who would remain unemployed. There is already an unemployment scenario here, 15%, right? But again, there is that void, no takers to take on the construction, give work, vocational. So what opportunities does this pandemic create for Bhutan in terms of employment?
Clearly, the pandemic has given us the opportunity to take up the jobs which are available. But if it depends how desperate someone is to take up these jobs. And in that desperation or in that situation, you might become one of the most skilled people in the country that potentially everyone will seek after. So this is an opportunity for you to take up such skills training or jobs.
The people that I employ for my factory, for my furniture house, their salary is a lot less actually than the construction people. So I asked them, I said, why is it that people apply for this job and not for that one? And then it's more of, they get a little embarrassed, I think. So I think on that part, just since I have the mic over here and I have a chance to talk, I think if we gear up our people and give them like good equipment, good clothes, good safety wear, I think they'll be ready to jump into the construction sites because the opportunity is huge right now. And it's a blessing in disguise also, so to speak, because this gives us a chance to become very, very self-reliant as well.
I feel like reflecting to children or youth in my own family, they seem to be creative. And I think having that creative mind itself is a fertile ground to start with something innovative, not necessarily follow the traditional paths of employment, but to break through and use that creativity to create new demand in the market, because although the market is small.
Dignity of labor. We should, and again, there is a role for education as teachers, as education system. How do we instill this dignity of labor? I'm not ashamed to clean my toilet at home. Why should I be ashamed to clean a public toilet where I'm even paid? I do my dishwashing at home. I do my laundry at home. But why should I be ashamed of doing that in an employment market where I'm paid? And today you see many of our Bhutanese educated youth are going abroad. What are they basically doing? Many of them. They are basically doing skilled, semi-skilled, even unskilled jobs. And the magic is in the wage. I have always talked to employers, why don't you start paying your people on an hourly basis? Today we are paying in a month $5,000. Low salary, but at the end of the month. Start making your wage hourly so that our workers can start working flexibly. I finish my work at 5 o'clock. Maybe 5 to 6, I might like to go and do a menial job somewhere where I will be paid for an hour, which I will use for paying my voucher, you see. And young people that way, or even elderly people, will have the flexibility to earn whatever little without getting really tied to that organization in a flexible manner. So this is one idea that we also discuss in bigger forums to actually streamline the way we pay our people. Whatever little we pay them on an hourly basis so that I have the flexibility of working 2 hours, 3 hours, weekend, you know. That might really be one opportunity for this COVID time because many people have no jobs.
We can't directly pinpoint to our youth and say that you should go work for constructions and all. We should, we were basically taught, to look towards the sky and stars. We're not asked to look for the rocks and pebbles. La. So I think it's just my opinion. When we were small, I think we should be taught to not select for the better. La. Like we should undertake what's the worst and try to make it better. La.
When it comes to education, I think I have a thought. Teach us how to learn. And then make it affordable and let there be resources. Because questions, example, how can we retain knowledge better? Or how can we effectively understand what we read? I think if we teach, if this is taught to us when we are quite small, it can actually help us, explore the world in a much more effective way. And I know it might be a new concept, or maybe it's not, but if not, then learn how to teach us how to learn and teach us how to learn.
So our job market needs a lot of other jobs, but we are still supplying doctors and engineers, or like the visionary or the high level of white collar jobs. Whereas the market has a demand over skilled jobs. So education should fit that. So I would like to reiterate and say that technology is the future, and technology-based learning should happen. I know there's digital divide and everything there, but at the policy level, at the government level, and at all levels, how can we provide solutions to that?
On the education front, I think, like Sir said, technology-based learning should happen. What this pandemic has taught us is that people can adapt, that it was never a question of whether they could or could not. It was always a question of whether they wanted to or not. And trickling down into the economy, I think it's condensing the topics of job mismatch and dignity of labor. I think it's the social mindset. It's been put into our heads since we were children that a public sector offers a sense of security, that this is the social status that everyone will look up to you. And I think that we need to take into these dimensions of unemployment and tackle these mindset from very early on.
I think we really have to look at the social acceptance side. We have to make it socially acceptable. And one way of doing it is through career guidance and counseling in schools and looking at the curriculum in schools. What you don't teach in schools also teaches a lot. I mean, you teach, if your textbook contains pictures or doing only civil servant jobs, that means that's what the children should aspire for. So these are certain things we don't teach. That also teaches a lot. And when it comes to social acceptance, I feel we should start part-time jobs for school-going kids so that children learn about these jobs and they get paid for it, and probably the saving culture and everything could be inculcated during that time. And so part-time job is something I feel we should introduce and make it socially acceptable. It doesn't mean you do part-time job only. Of course you need the money, but also it is something you're learning from that process.
I think we can bring some kind of effective method to it. I say this because the government, they have the resources. They have the people, the money, the infrastructure. And the private sector, I like to believe we are the free thinkers, especially people at my office, if I may say so myself. We like to think outside the box. We like to think about some crazy ideas. And we are meeting our friends who has come back to the country on a daily basis and talking to them about their experience. And these people, they really do have the talent. They did bring with them a lot of experience. Now, the thing what we have to do is, we have to know, how do we take advantage of their experience? How can we use their experience and develop ourselves over here? And I think that with this, we have an avenue where we can work together with the government in such a way that it's not temporary. It's not just to fulfill the need of the COVID situation right now, but it serves post-COVID also.
First and foremost is, are we all seeing this as an opportunity or not? That is the question that we have to ask. If we say yes, then who are the players? And then within not only inter-agency, for example, government versus the young entrepreneurs or private sector, but within the private sector themselves as well. There are so many business activities. have you also reflected yourself? Starting from raw materials to product to market, and who will buy that? Within that, whole gamut of the young or enterprises, one can be, your raw material, what you're doing, and how you connect with whole of the rest of the, entities. And that could, something that, where private sector could also reflect on themselves to make our economy resilient. I think this is a whole lot of self-reflection it has really provided us with. And as much as I think there has to be reflection being done and take our own at the individual level as a citizen, taking that responsibility, but also if you have a wonderful, great ideas and you know who can be the agent of change, go there, tell. I think that's what taking all of us on board and taking a collective responsibility to tap that opportunity. Definitely there is an opportunity, a lot.
So in Bhutan, we have government providing football grounds. But when we want additional facilities, it's private sector. So the futsal now costs 3,000-4,000, I believe, for a game. Is it 3,000-4,000? I don't know. So I feel that maybe some of these public services like healthcare, football, sports facilities, maybe could be operated by communities and groups. And this is where maybe the government can also support this new third group who can also provide some employment. And it doesn't mean that you do it all for free, you get a salary. We know we have people calling themselves they're social workers, and now there's a new group that's growing flowers in Gaza. Very interesting economic model. Certain percentage of their profits go to the farmers who plant the flowers, 60% of it. And out of that 60%, I understand half of it is supposed to be reinvested into the local economy. That means only half of that profit goes to the farmers, and the rest of the 40% goes to the young entrepreneur partners in Thimphu. So these are the models I think we need to investigate because our economy is really small. I kind of felt I need to. And then one quick point, I think COVID is the opportunity, but the opportunity is now, and we need to really quickly fix things. So one opportunity, again, is like looking at, I think Chiki used to be in NCWC, like revitalizing, reimagining our dryungs and bars. Not to close them, but to make them real places of talent, so that people of talent can go. So Karma said they're dark, about construction, no? Being dark, dirty, and demeaning. About, what is it? Dirty, demeaning, and dangerous. So I think we're not advocating for dryungs to be closed. We're saying that dryungs are not dirty, but they're very dark. They're demeaning because I think the NCWC study has shown that the girls feel that their friends look down on them, right? They're dangerous because they're risky. They put them at risk. So maybe we should re-look at these places and propose that the girls not need to go and request for what do you call it, songs from customers, but to pay a one-time fee, a service charge, a cover charge for every set of music. Turn the places around so that our young talented people can really perform and they all be paid a decent wage. Instead of, relying on a minimal wage and then the rest of your, it depends on how much tips you get through requests.
I think the COVID also presents us with the opportunity to reflect back on our social protection mechanisms and the approach that now I think we need to adopt, because the displacement of many, particularly the young, I think make them more vulnerable. And this, I think, can lead to them taking up undesirable forms of employment, being exploited. So I think this is the time that we reflect on social protection mechanism, a comprehensive systemic approach, I think, which involves all partners. And I think maybe this is where the government now needs to rethink our approach of how do we address unemployment generally, and then also in terms of coping in emergencies.
It's hard to predict what the future is going to be. Taking cue from Sir's point that today's job will not be there in the future. So that means that the future is unknown. So that means the education system needs to prepare children for an unknown future. So if that is the case, then how ought the curriculum be? How should the teacher training be? How should the pedagogy be? How should the policy be? So these are big questions that come to my mind. And if technology is the one that is going to connect and build societal resilience in terms of future pandemic or crisis or issues, then how do we prepare our society and citizens to take advantage of that? And what is the economic cost of that? Again, that is a big question. And with regard to employment, I think we need to connect education with the employment scenario. Of course, education has a bigger goal than just getting into a job or a livelihood purpose. It has bigger goal of preparing individuals as good citizens, right? People with values and all. But what would really make Bhutan address the issue of not having economic diversity in economy and having a huge youth unemployment? I think the answer is, as some of the speakers have mentioned, the answer is in really connecting education with the private sector, opening up the education sector to more space for creativity and innovation to come in. And also looking at different economic models, rather than just looking at government and the private, the emerging economic models, and collaboration across those sectors, the government, the private, the civil society, and the community-based co-ops. I think the collaboration, it is in collaboration that we build societal resilience. So on that note, thank you so much for spending this afternoon with us.